So I survived the debate, learned something about myself. Apparently, I'm a Nazi, among other things that were shouted at me and other people lined up to go inside to Roy Thompson Hall to watch the debate. It was an interesting experience the whole evening. Like I said, I'd been to the Munk debates several times, and there was never this much interest around the debate. I think there were actually at some point, some people that had come out to maybe hand out literature or something before the debate that may not have completely agreed with one of the speakers. I don't recall at the moment, but nothing like what we saw on Friday night, which was a couple of hundred people that had shown up in front of the venue, and they had started to come out about an hour and a half before the event was supposed to start. And so walking up to Roy Thompson Hall at around 6:15 p.m. with the event having been announced to start at 6:45, 7 p.m. People were supposed to be in their seats by 6:45. The whole thing was supposed to get started around 7. My wife and I thought we'd get there just in time. Obviously, should have thought to come a little bit earlier. Things had gotten clogged up a bit. There were a ton of people. There were a ton of cops, which was actually nice to see. I think we in North America, or maybe in Canada, we often think, oh, we don't need all this security presence. That's not us. But really, I think for those going to the event, I think it did seem like it did help to keep things organized. The group of people that did come out to protest were quite loud, and they were intent on getting in the face of the people that were going into the event. So imagine two ways to get into the front doors, both with long lineups, because what greeted you as before you entered the doors was, I think we got patted down. Well, we got patted down and we got checked by metal detectors. All of this is moving slowly. And as you're waiting in line, these protesters who are holding up banners, blowing whistles, just making noise, drawing attention to themselves, are coming up quite close to these people waiting in line and basically yelling things like shame, Nazis, and things like this. So right off the bat, you're you're starting out with an anxious atmosphere, because living in a North American metropolis like Toronto, you're not used to people accosting you like that and getting in your face. I mean, once in a while you have somebody in a downtown core. You're kind of used to maybe some people that maybe try and kind of get in your way or cost you. It doesn't happen that often. I mean, somebody maybe getting a little bit too forward with panhandling or something like that, people with addiction issues and things like that, but it rarely happens. But here you have a mass group of people who are actually trying to get in your face, they're trying to not just put their point forward, but they're trying to make it uncomfortable for those going to the event. So I think in that sense they succeed. Now, to what end? The line moved slowly, and we eventually got in. The event was delayed, I think, by about a half an hour. They did even start before everybody had gotten to their seats. And so that anxious atmosphere sort of continued inside the event as well. What the whole thing led to was a lot of people, sort of talking to each other more. We spoke with a few people that we encountered. Everybody was kind of exchanging their opinions on exactly what was going on outside, and just how long things were taking. No sort of negative opinions, mind you, just a lot of sort of, concerned opinions in that, of course, we had paid to go there, so we weren't going to see the point of somebody who thinks that this whole thing should be shut down and that people going to it should be yelled at. So clearly, we weren't going to go as far as that. But definitely nothing to the sort of like derisive saying something negative about those people outside at all. So finally, we all get to our seats. The debate gets started, and as soon as Bannon starts his opening remarks, we see the first sign of sort of a disruption inside the hall. And actually, even before that, I'll say, that level of anxiousness kind of continues. All of a sudden, imagine you've got, again, a venue with, several thousand people inside, and you are seeing cops standing at the in different sections and stuff like that. So again, not something you're used to in a city like Toronto. You don't go to the symphony or a sports game or something. You don't really see that many, or like maybe at a sports game there's like a cop here or there, but like you certainly don't go to, you know, these events that are attended by you know, the people like that are attended at places like Roy Thompson Hall. If you don't know, that's again, that's a venue for things like classical music, filled with police and things like that. So everybody's kind of at a heightened state of alert, and you know, it's like the minute somebody's purse falls or something, people are like, oh, what's going on, you know? So that kind of atmosphere was interesting. And then of course Bannon starts to speak, and this is what happens.
Follow a policy tonight. This person has been cautioned. If she does not stop, she will unfortunately be asked to leave this debate. So, Madame, it's your decision. You can stay or you can go. What are we going to do? Okay, no, I'm sorry. You're still engaging. Officers, we're going to move forward with our plan. If we can please remove the person from the hall.
So what you saw there was that woman unfurl the banner and start to yell things out. The crowd trying to sort of drown her out, get her to sit down, clapping. It was about making noise to sort of extinguish what she was doing. And then the most interesting part of all, which I think sort of embodies, if anything, it that happened that evening embodied what to me this whole thing was about, was what the moderator did in that moment. What he said was, here's what we're going to do. This is the protocol for tonight. We are going to ask you and allow you to stay if you'd like, but you have to stop interrupting. So if you'd like, you can stay or you can be removed by the police officers. And at first the woman says, I'll stay, to which people start to clap. And then she continues to yell, at which point the moderator says, okay, I guess we're just going to have to remove you. But just the fact that this woman, after having interrupted the program, which again, like, remember, a bunch of people, like thousands of people in attendance having paid to watch something, and now somebody comes in and is interrupting it. Like if it was anything at any kind of event, if something was to be interrupted, like if a streaker runs onto the field at a game, they get ejected. It's the same thing. You're interrupting the entertainment that people have come out to see. So, but the reaction is, you know what? We're not actually going to come down hard on you and throw you right out. We're actually going to show you that we're open and willing to accept that you showed your opinion, you expressed your opinion, and you can stay. Guess what? That person did not want to play by those rules, and I think that whole little exchange, a beautiful microcosm of that whole evening. Anyway, we move on. The debate continues. Things sort of, again, that tension I feel kind of like died down there throughout the whole debate. There was a lot of very interesting reactions from the crowd. People definitely showed their displeasure with certain things that mostly Bannon had said. I feel like the support in the crowd was overwhelmingly from side, and in fact the results of the voting showed that, where only 28% of the people agreed with the motion which Bannon was supporting, and that stayed consistent from before to after the debate. But there was good back and forth. Both of those men are extremely articulate. They presented their points. People, again, they clapped, they jeered, they cheered. the speakers were not, for those that don't watch these things a lot, you may think, oh, this is such a dry sort of exchange, but actually they were often funny. I mean, at one point there was a woman who kept sort of cheering on Bannon, and you could hear her because she'd often be the only one doing so. And after having done this several times, Bannon kind of said, "Thanks, Mom," which got the whole crowd going. So the way they handled themselves was really interesting. The one thing that I didn't like was I thought that the debate focused too much on Trump and on the states. I mean, I kind of understand. I mean, both Bannon and that's their, that's where they live. That's where they're involved with. Both of them worked for presidents in the White House. So I understand. But again, this idea of populism is now a global issue. And in fact, they did allude to it, Hungary and France and a few other places, but they never went deep on it. The other thing that they didn't go deep on was what actually Bannon brought up in his opening and closing remarks, was that, well, in his opinion, of course, he was arguing for it. He said, it's not a question of whether populism is going to be the new reality. It's whether it's going to be economic populism or socialist populism of the kinds of policies and stuff that the likes of Bernie Sanders put forward. So that was never picked up. The moderator stayed out of the debate for the most part, which was good in a way because Bannon and Frum were very respectful and kept going back and forth with timers and stuff like that, which made it all very organized and very well. But I felt like it could have been pushed more towards that direction. Again, to my point from my first video, populism is not just a right-wing thing. It's not just a Republican thing in the States. There's populism on the left, and populism is something that can infect people on both sides of that divide. So I wish that was sort of explored more. Bannon handled himself well. I thought he was rattled a little bit at one point, especially when he was sort of pressed by the moderator to answer a question, which it seemed like he was kind of going to try and weasel out of. I spoke with my wife. She disagreed. She thought that he sort of played things off pretty well. He said remarks like, "I'm used to tough crowds," and he made jokes about like, "Oh, I forgot I'm in Toronto." There's an understanding that we are a left-leaning country, and that's fine. This was all played very interestingly into the whole debate. My favorite quotes from both of them, Frum's was, "The failures of a good system are no reason to turn to an evil one. We have to renew and repair." And Bannon's was, "Trump is not perfect. He's an imperfect instrument," which, I think a lot of people sort of already, this is what they even accuse Bannon of sort of being like the puppet master of a lot of this. But I do think it was interesting, given the fact that Bannon basically sort of championed Trump and defended Trump for all of the debate, basically. So like I mentioned, the debate, at the Munk debate, by the way these things work is the audience votes before the start of the debate and after the debate ends on whether they support or disagree with the motion. So again, the motion from Friday night was, the future of Western politics is populist, not liberal. And at the start of the debate, only 28% of people in the audience agreed with that. At the close of the debate, it remained the same. Personally, I voted for the motion at first because I really, I don't see populism slowing down on the right and on the left. And here's why. Populism uses the average person with usually lower than average education as fuel for its fire. Like I said, it's the average person, people who don't have the time or interest to spend too much time reading into the issues and what people really stand for, or what they're really saying, and they get hooked on catchphrases and opinions of other people, and it's much easier to say anything. Like, I'm not even going to give examples because then it'll be like, oh, if I'm focusing on one versus the other. But you know what I'm talking about. It's basically those people that are simplistic in the way that they interpret things, that the reasons why they vote for people, the way that they see issues. And again, happens on the right and happens on the left. But I just don't see that changing because the nature of our communications has changed. It used to be that people who were not overly interested in politics and who did not have a great education, did not maybe understand a lot of things that were going on in these complex, these economic issues, foreign relations issues, these are all complex things. But, 20 years ago, you had a newspaper that you read. You maybe had you had a few channels on TV where you saw the news maybe once a night, and then there really was no way to even organize or to talk to other people or get the opinions. You got the opinion of your friends when you saw them once a week, maybe once a month, less if you were busy. Nowadays, the average person turns on their social media and there are thousands of channels and they're bombarded with increasingly partisan and sort of entertainment focused news sources, which are just going after eyeballs and clicks. And so they have to sensationalize things. And guess what? Nobody wants to sit there and listen to a 30-minute discussion of an issue. They want to tune in and, see what creepy porn lawyer is up to. So I voted for the motion. But you know what? Throughout the debate, I thought Frum did really well. I thought he was the perfect mix of sort of bullish on the fact that his idea and sort of that grander idea of liberalism is the way forward. But also he admitted that, things weren't perfect. And he actually sort of said that he saw a lot of the reasons why the right-wing populist movement in the States has gotten so strong. And you know what? He inspired me, to be honest. Like, I really thought, I really gained a lot of respect for him. And I thought, you know what? There is a different way. And I did like what he said about populism being divisive. I really do think that either way, left or right, populism is divisive. And I would prefer something that is more inclusive. There's just no way around it. So I actually voted against the motion in the end. I'm still not sure that it's going to be easy to come back from where we are today, and with this sort of, these polar extremes where like you go online and what are you clicking on? Oh, so-and-so destroys lefty commentator, or like on the right, racist, like does this or that. Those are the things where people are existing. What's happening in the middle? The middle is not lucrative. It seems it's not as profitable. So in the end, I think it's amazing that this event went ahead despite of everything that happened. I think it was handled very well by the organizers, by Roy Thompson Hall, by the police, everybody. But you know what? People shouldn't feel threatened in a city like Toronto. Going out on a Friday night, attending an above board event at a regular, respectable venue, people shouldn't be harassed the way that we were going into the venue. Protesting peacefully is not the same as getting up into people's faces, yelling at them, and, like I said, accosting them. So again, the last thing is to those that felt this should have been shut down, or maybe to those who were there. Do those actions of those people, do you think that makes those in line or anybody else really want to hear your point? Again, what we saw inside was respectful back and forth conversation where somebody had 3 minutes to speak, 5 minutes to speak, and then they stopped and then the other person went. It wasn't trying to yell each other down. Nothing happens. You can't hear each other speak, or if everybody is yelling. So the better thing to do is to discuss. And that's the only way that we're going to go forward. And nobody has the answer. And as long as we're not shutting anybody down for anything like their race or their gender or whatever, as long as we're discussing ideas on an equal playing field, then we'll be better for it. So I'm glad that I went. I'm glad that it went down. I hope that the Munk Debates continues to put on these great events. And I hope that we all learn something about ourselves as a city. And I hope it was a great piece of thought-provoking sort of intellectual entertainment for everyone.